All right, Chance, we appreciate you being here with us on this weekend, making some time to talk with us, Tales from the Core. And, in actual combat, decisions get made fast with incomplete information. So, how do you even begin to prepare to portray the seriousness of that?
Well, it's all human behavior, all of it, and what you guys go through is nothing that I can really relate to one on one. But when you're concerned about something, your focus is elevated, and what I've done. The most effective thing for me is talk to real Marines and military folk who've been in the field, and been in the middle of it, and that was the only way I was able to do an effective job in Generation Kill was by getting directly in touch. Well, Rudy was incredibly helpful all along the way, as was Cucker. These were the guys that we were portraying essentially, but they were on the show with us.
Right.
But then I asked them, hey, can you put me in touch with Ferrando? And I had the idea that maybe we could share an email or two. He put me on like an email with him, and then we got on the phone, and then we talked every week through the course of the shooting. And to me, it was like just step into that, because he was incredibly candid and forthcoming with information. He answered pretty much anything I asked, with a few exceptions. And I in talking to those guys, that was what gave me the clearest sense of what was going on in those moments, in those missions, and getting to know them as real people was really effective to me too, because you can go out there and do the John Wayne thing, and like it's not real. No one buys that. I think the key thing as from an acting standpoint, nothing to do with what you guys do, but in order to illustrate that for people on camera, I think you have to understand the human elements underneath it all, underneath all the courage and bravery and fear and all that.
I think that you guys nailed it. And before we started recording, one of the things you talked about was how much Marines love it, and it kind of became our anthem, so to speak. And that reflects onto how incredible of a job you all did in your portrayals in the series. You're talking about information that you as an actor was looking for. What were some of the most important, maybe questions? What was like one of the most important questions to you that you asked to be able to portray the Colonel?
Well, I think it's best when you just go to the highs and lows. And one of the things I said to him and asked him along the way was, what was your major concern here in this instance? And, at the airfield there was one episode that we really portrayed that incident with, there was a young child injured out at the airfield, and this major decision of, do we get this kid to proper medical care? Do we take the risk and deploy the resources necessary to get that kid to what we view as proper medical care? Or do we look at the interest of this platoon, of this battalion? And he said, it was a major conflict in his mind, because Ferrando's a great dude, and he's a real Christian soul and a very devout leader. But he had to make some hard freaking decisions in that moment. And that's, like, you don't have to be a Marine to be affected by that. In fact, I think, non-Marines are probably much more affected by that, so that was easy when you really find like what's the emotional dynamic going on there. And that, that's not a military dynamic. That's a human dynamic. And, getting to know these guys personally was critical for me, the way I tend to do it.
And something you hit on huge, and when we had our buddy Bruce McKenna on, one of the things I complimented on that series as well as well as what you all did, is I think that so many times they just portray us as like these war machines, and there's real human stuff that goes on inside of us. And when you're dealing with the population, you're dealing with kids, and you have to make these different decisions. And for what it's worth, and Neil, see if you agree with, I was a corporal, I was a section leader, I had 15 guys. Just being at that battalion level, being the top guy on the ground, reporting directly to Mattis, there's so much going on there, and that's why I think that what Ferrando did and your portrayal is so important to the series. All the Marines, the entire group, everybody's equally important, but that leadership and all this to kind of say and ask, what was one of the biggest, the most shocking moments as you were learning and preparing for the role that was just like, Jesus, man, this guy did this?
Um, I to me, the most impressive thing about Ferrando to me was his stalwart stoicism. It was almost unwavering, and I think he used that as his one of his greatest assets. He was solid. He was steady in looking back, everyone's like, well, that there was nothing going on there anyway. The tip of the spear didn't matter because there was nothing there. No one knew that. There was so much unknown at that moment in that with their particular detail. You guys go first. Go find out what's there.
Right.
That's fucking scary. I don't care who you are. And and that was him. Mattis said, you are going to do this. And he was extremely reverent of Mattis. He liked him, like, he really, really revered him. And one of his main concerns straight through was, I don't want to disappoint Mattis. And, to him, I think to Steve, that would have been true failure, professional failure, spiritual failure. And I don't think he did. I think Mattis, I don't know that much about it. I don't know Mattis, but I know Steve. And I think he was successful in that effort.
Is there anything that you learned personally, leadership qualities that you've carried with you since Generation Kill?
Let me tell you something. I got 5-6 years into the acting thing, and I'm like, what were you thinking? You should have fucking gone to the Marines first and then done the acting. But I was in it. I was in, and I was like almost 30, and I'm like, well, you're getting paid a little bit to do this. Yeah, you'll get paid to be a Marine, but you might get, I was just like, I deliberated for many years. Should I just pause and go do the Marines for a little while? And and then time, then you have a couple babies, and then you're 40, and you're like, fuck it, just be the best Marine on camera you can. But I learned a lot about how to father by what I learned from my friends in the Marines, and I have 2 young boys, and they're great kids.
Well, then it
The
sounds like you
Marines,
raised them like Marines.
Got some Marines there.
the Marines did a lot to help me understand how to really navigate that path.
That's something that's actually hilarious, man. Like it kind of makes me want to go talk to some of our old officers and be like, hey, sir, how much did having to deal with us help you to raise your kids? I never thought about that. That's pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I just Steve, me and Ferrando are good friends. We've remained good friends ever since, and he's got 3 boys, and they're like 6, 7, 8 years older than my oldest. So like he was ahead of me proportionally to age, and we would share a lot about parenting. And he had just boys. I have a girl and two boys. The girl was no problem. the boys, the boys are where it gets tricky. So anyway, yeah, no, that helped. But in my career and in my work life, and I have another business unrelated to acting and writing, and just the whole credo and the whole mentality of the Marines, and being, Rudy and I are really good friends too, and I've seen the ups and downs in his life and how he's persevered and overcome stuff, and it's just that mentality that you guys have, the work ethic, the make something out of nothing, the keep going in spite of any level of despair or negativity. And yeah, it's been really instrumental to me. And maybe I didn't have to go to the Marines. Maybe I got some of the benefits along the way anyway. But
So based off of everything you just said there about our work ethic, our perseverance, making something out of nothing, right now there's somebody listening, watching this podcast that's served, doesn't have to be a Marine, and is like just ready to give up. Well, what do you say to somebody that's sitting there right now, and what's inside of us, what's inside of them, to keep them going?
well, I would say that the the opportunity to serve in the military is something that I didn't take advantage of, and I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh, I'm crying about it and I have major regrets," but it is something that I wish I could have done. Looking back, as an older guy who's done some things, uh, and I've also seen the positive things that it does do for people is incredible, and it's everlasting, and it's a huge part of the skeleton of what we are as a nation. So anybody in the military on any level should take unprecedented pride in just having the opportunity to do that and to serve. And they may you it's maybe hard for military vets and active duty folks to appreciate that there are people out there that truly revere them, you, and the service that you give to the country. And I don't mean to sound like a patronizing douchebag. I
No,
mean it,
not at all. Yeah.
because I know you guys, and I've marched with the Marines and down in Jersey, and I've met Marines all over the world, and Army vets and active duty, Navy, Coast Guard. I know cops across the country, and there's just a real honorable trait that runs through all of you, and it's incredibly admirable. And anybody in the military should carry that with great pride and know that I know it's not easy. I mean, it's it's a major challenge going into the military and even law enforcement. But the upside, I think, and I think you have to look at it on a spiritual level to some degree, is astronomical. I mean, it's everlasting and it's really purposeful, I think. So I think you go for in anything in life, whether it's this, military service or any pursuit in life, you got to take the good with the bad. And if you can really focus on what is this doing for me on a net positive level, I think the military offers incredible net upside for people.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of us, we go to become better versions of ourselves, and it's weird when you get out. You kind of, I mean, the brotherhood. Sylvester, we just put up a reel from him talking about it's hard to sleep alone. So when you guys got done filming Generation Kill, did you experience that? Did you experience when you had to leave the guys? Was it difficult to leave and go on to the next thing?
we're all good friends, you know, but it was a weird shoot, and I had two little kids. A couple of us had kids, like three or four or five of us had kids, and the vast majority of the rest of us didn't. Most of those guys were single, no kids, no real, uh, you know, a, no real tethers to home. So I missed being there, but I had a different schedule than most of those guys. I would go in, give a long speech or two, and then they quite often would send me home.
Hmm.
I got sent home four times. Like if you had a 2 week break in shooting, they would send you home. So I got to go home four times over the course of that shoot, which the shoot was, Christ. They told me, they're like, you're going to go to Africa for, what did they say? 9 months. No, 6 months. And I went, you meant 6 weeks, right? And I meant that. I'm like, you mean weeks, right? She goes, no, months. I was like, I had a 4 and a 5-year-old. Wait, yeah, I had a 4 and a 5-year-old. I'm like, I don't think I can do that. But then I was like, I can't say no to that either. So I went. Um, but yeah, there was a great bond that formed between the guys. And as I said, Rudy, Cucker, uh, Carazales, those three guys are in. They're in the battalion. They're in the book. They were in the movie with us, and Rudy played himself, as you know. So
Yeah, right.
it just brought an element of authenticity to it, and you could just turn to them at any moment and say, "Am I carrying my gun right?" And they could just adjust it. It wasn't like you had to go research it.
You brought up Rudy and the other guys that were there. Rudy being an actual recon Marine. How much impact did he have? Did you guys ever have like a train, like a boot camp? Like the guys that we know from the Pacific, they had to go through that 9-10 day boot camp, and get training from legit Marines as well. Freddie Joe, Bruce Whitfield, Roberto Garcia, and they hammered them. They hammered them for like 10 days. They gave them the authentic experience. Did you guys get any of that, or did you just
Yeah.
kind of just rely on Rudy and the others?
No, there was a boot camp. They didn't make the
Yeah.
office.
Yeah.
They didn't make the
Yes.
officers
Let's go.
That's
go
what I
to
want to
it.
hear. That's what I want to hear.
They did it, but they didn't make us go. So if you were playing an officer, you didn't have to go. All right. I've shot a few guns, so I know plenty about guns. So I knew how to handle guns and all that. Um, my character never shot a gun on camera in the show, so it wasn't an issue with me. But a lot of these kids, some of these kids were 18 years old, the actors. So I think it was important that they put them through some level of gun safety, and just some level of training. You're running out, you're hitting the ground, you might be carrying weapons, you might be carrying a blade. Don't hurt yourself. So I don't know exactly what they did in the boot camp, but Rudy and Cucker ran it, as far as I understand, and it was fun. The guys, what it was, if nothing else, it was great bonding for them. By the time I got there a week later, they all knew, they were all like buddy, which was good. They were like a battalion. They really knew each other. It was good.
That's awesome.
And you
Yeah.
know what? That's just another HBO example, right? Because they also remember they didn't bring in David Schwimmer at first, and you hear stories about them talking about when he showed up. They're like, "Who the fuck is this guy? And why is he in
Right,
charge?"
yeah.
And I would say, like with Jen Kill, the Pacific Band of Brothers, all part of that HBO. They did such an incredible job of getting it right. And it's cool to sound, because honestly, as someone who's a lieutenant colonel, you shouldn't be going through a boot camp with guys that are junior enlisted. That's how it should be. So I always love hearing the kind of how they handle things behind the scenes like that. And it's just like, man, we get off on that weird shit, don't we? Like,
Yeah.
we're like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. They
That's
did
how
it
it
right.
should be. Yeah.
Yeah. Even
What?
Scott, he always feels bad that he only got 4 days of boot camp and got to live in a tent. And we're like, Scott, you're Captain Haldane. Like, you're not supposed to be treated like the rest of us. You know, like
Yeah.
the boots, the enlisted. Like,
Yeah.
they did it right. They did it right. It's okay. You didn't miss anything. You're good.
Yeah, if those details matter, I think in any show or film, it brings a texture of authenticity, and I think it does make a difference.
Is there
Yeah,
anything that
Yeah, no, I was saying, it always struck me how well that was captured, that officer enlisted dynamic, in these shows. Like, damn, how do they do that? And then you hear about it, it makes sense,
Well, yeah. So all those guys went out a week early, and I flew over with me and Michael Kelly flew over together, and Neil Jones, Neil Jones was possibly the best one. I mean, he was as good as anybody in that thing. He was phenomenal. He came in with like a Shakespearean, like deep theatrical training, and he was a couple years older than everyone. And he played, what was that sergeant's name? He was the drill sergeant. He was the one yelling at all the guys. He was hilarious. But they separated us. Like, they kept us officers in one section. They kept all those enlisted guys over in a totally different housing complex. They did it by design. It made sense. It worked.
Less amenities, less good stuff for the enlisted, of course.
I think so. It was all kind of a game, but and then we all gravitated to each other. I mean, the officers were mostly the older guys who had kids, and they just kind of gravitated together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's real life, though, man. And
Yeah.
you know what's crazy about it too, and you have to have that separation in the real world and the real life. A lot of people don't realize. I don't even think I realized it when I was in. But coming back from like my third deployment, I'm 21 years old, and we get a brand new lieutenant who's like 23, and this dude's going to be in charge of 40 something people. Right. Souls, Marines.
Yeah.
Dude's 2 years older than me, Yeah. And so you do have to keep us separated, because if you let a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old start hanging out, they're going to be buddy. I remember, man, I thought my officers were like, damn, 40 years older. So I didn't think that, but that's how they
Right.
seemed.
I know. It's true. Just a couple of years can seem like a lifetime at that era, at that point.
Neil and I went to Peleliu, and the combat engineers are out there on a deployment, and I remember seeing their platoon commander and their staff sergeant, and they looked like children. And I'm like, dude, holy shit, these are the dudes that used to be in charge of us. Like, they're kids. Yeah. Like, the leaders are kids. Even how old was Steve?
He was 40. Let's see. I think he was about 42 or 3 when they went out there in when was that? 03?
Yes, 03.
Yeah.
I
think he was 43. Yeah, because he's about 6 years older than me. Yeah, something that's about right.
That's still not that old to be in charge of I mean, I know that's how the military works, but to have the entire recon battalion under your command.
Yeah, no, he was a young guy. And when I played him, I think I was 40. So I was close. We were right there, And let me tell you, at 40, I seemed like the old man. These guys were like 18, 19, 20 years old, a lot of them.
There it is, man. That's more truth to it, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a fun little question we love to ask the actors. What were your thoughts of Marines before Generation Kill, and what was your perspective and thoughts of Marines after Generation Kill?
Well, I knew a few Marines prior to Gen Kill, and I knew they were. You had to be tough. You had to be focused. You had to be kind of this no nonsense approach to things. But I didn't know many of them all that well personally. Like I say, Gen Kill was an experience for me it was the closest thing to me actually becoming a Marine, like in terms of just my interaction with these guys, Rudy, Cucker, Carazales, Ben Bush was one of the officers, actors. He had been a Marine as well. He went as far as major, I believe. Um, and then getting to know Colonel Ferrando, uh, it was just a real enlightening experience for me. I really got to know a lot about how these guys tick, how you guys tick. And as I said, you don't think they're not humans, but it doesn't occur to you that these guys have a lot of the same concerns and human elements, even flaws at times that you have. And that's the best way, I think, to portray somebody is, how can I weave some of my DNA into what they did and do? And to me, there's no better way than to just talk to guys one-on-one, a few times. And like I said, Steve and I talked a lot. And it was like really, really fortifying. I couldn't have done it. I don't think I would have. I would have done scenes, and I think I would have looked like a deer in the headlights had I not had his backstory. Like I'd say, Steve, what is this paragraph about? And I can tell you now, I would read it to him in certain cases because I don't even know what it means. Like I could look up the phrases and I still don't know what it means. Like, oh, no, well, see, we were out there in the airfield and they're telling us that we got to do this. And if you don't know that, and if you don't tell Mattis that, there could be a lot of, and he'd tell me, like, I mean, he wasn't disclosing any classified intel, but he would tell me the dynamic and that I never would have known. So that was great. And it was a lot of fun hearing it too. So to answer your question, I just got to know the Marines really, really well during Gen Kill in a way I never had before, and lasting long-term friendships.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man.
That's awesome, and it's a good answer, right? Like we've been called assholes.
Yeah. Thanks, Badger. That one kind of stuck.
Yeah.
It's stuck.
Yeah, it's great though. It's
It's funny.
That's actually one of the things that started the question was, just some of the responses and just wondering what people's experiences and thoughts were before and after, because it seems like it's just like your experience. It changes you. It seems like everybody we've ever talked to that's been in a role in a series, film, show, whatever it may be, like yourself, it just seems like it has a profound effect on them, and it's like almost life-changing to an extent, which is we would find that fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was life-changing. It was very impactful in a positive way for my career, but it was life-changing, like on a spiritual level, to get to know these guys and to really, really understand what makes them tick, and it was like getting on the inside. It was a great experience.
I'm so glad you did the voice because I was going to ask you about that. Steven's voice. You said you had to do it for 6 months. So, how did you come to do it, and then how long did it take you to stop doing that? To stop with the voice, and did it mess the throat up at all?
Well, so in casting, first off, I was the last choice. Okay, they read a whole bunch of guys for this thing, and guys with infinitely more credits than I had. And me and Steve don't look anything alike. He's dark hair, I'm light, fair hair, whatever. He's a good deal slimmer than I am, but it didn't matter. I did the voice better than anyone. They sent out a video of him talking to these guys right before they stepped off. They were in Kuwait, I think. And there was just something about it. I just was able to do it. I could hear there was a breathiness to it. And there's a gravelly, like this. He pushed it like through an upper register that we don't do. Like we talk here, he was talking like here. It just became clear to me. So when I went in, they were like, all right, he's okay. He's a nobody. But then he got that voice down. So then they made me go in like 5 more times. to see if I could fuck something up and they could like cross me off. And I just didn't, I had read the book twice and I just told myself, I'm like, I like this dude. I want to play this guy. And I just, got really focused on it. And they cast me and I flew to Africa 5 days later. That's how late they waited. I know they wouldn't tell me this. I know they offered it to some other people who said no first, but good for them. And you do what in that situation. It's like being a Marine, or a fill-in boxer. Like you got to go when you're called, So it was hard to get ready in 5 days to go to Africa for whatever 3 months. But I was like, fuck it, I got to go.
It's an iconic voice, man.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's his voice, but
yeah, it's iconic.
That's that hurry up and wait, right?
Yeah,
hurry up and wait.
That's the business. So,
What's something that you hear most from? Because going off of that with Neil and the voice and your portrayal, how well you did. What are some other things that guys have come up? I say guys, Marines, but it can be anybody. But that come up and say to you whenever they get to see you or meet you.
I have met Marines, and again, Army, Navy, Air Force, they all love it. Most of the people I've talked to will come up to me, love the show. But Marines have it's almost got a mythical quality to it. Like they regard me in much higher esteem than they should because I played Godfather. It symbolizes something for them. And I had no idea when we finished it that it would be this impactful to Marines specifically for generations. And I mean, to this day, I'll be at a rest stop in Carolina and I'll see from across the rest stop, I'll see the eyes and they'll come and two dudes will come up to me. They're like, Godfather. I'm like, yeah. And they have this like reverence guy. I'm like, dude, chill out. Like what, I'll talk to where were you, where did you serve? When did you serve? What's your name? And we'll talk. And I'm like, thank you for reinforcing that you like what we did. That's what it's all about. If I can go and portray somebody and some group of branch of military service, an entire swath of people, a population of people, and they can approve of it in that way, man, that's what it's all about for me.
Yeah.
But we joke, we kind of do this, and I don't think it's a joke. I take it seriously. When me and you, Mike, were like, well, Josh and Scotty Badger and all these guys, you guys are honorary Marines. You actually got that title like officially, didn't you? Like like somebody actually like said, hey, let's make a thing of this.
Yeah, and I greatly appreciate it. My friend Steve Lord, he's a great dude. He was a Marine. He was a law enforcement. The guy is a bona fide motherfucker. He's also a great dude. He set it up with this detachment in Freehold, New Jersey, 203, the Philip A. Reynolds detachment. They've been around for a while. They've been around since the 20s. And we did it on Memorial Day in 2009 or 10, I think. And, look, it doesn't make me a Marine. I don't have any delusions about that. What it means is you guys approve of what I did. And that's what matters to me, and if I become friends with some Marines as a result, that's just that's beautiful. And that's icing on the cake. And that's just means you did a good job. That's what it tells me. And that makes me feel good. I played 3 living people in my life. And after the first one, I did not want to screw it up. The first one was some asshole from Long Island who beat up his girlfriend and kidnapped her on America's Most Wanted. So I didn't give a shit. making him feel good. But the next two were Ferrando and Mike Martz, who coached Kurt Warner. And I don't want to play someone and make them not like it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of those were easy tasks because they were both written. Yeah, there's a whole other conversation. The HBO wanted to make fun of the officers, and that was part of their presentation of this show. Is the officers are idiots, the enlisted guys are the heroes. That's fine. I mean, to some extent, that's true, but it's not true across the board. And like the portrayal of Captain America, for instance, really got under Steve's skin. He did not like that because these were his guys, and he's like, Chance, these are, these are world class recon Marines who have risen up the ladder by merit and by performance. They could not have gotten there and been such doofuses at the once they were in that position. So that was that was sensationalized largely. Him and the other the big dude who Brian Wade played. Many of them were caricatures of who they really were. And they did it with Steve a little bit. And I tried to push back a little bit, including the last episode. There was some things that just I don't think were accurate. And we modified them a little bit. The producers were reasonable with that stuff. It wasn't them. I think it was more. Well, I shouldn't say. I don't know who was really making the calls at the top, but you gotta have your bumblers, and you gotta have somebody to blame it on. And who fucked this all up? Well, of course, the officers did, and that wasn't entirely accurate.
I feel like if we heard that, I'm sitting here listening to everything that you just said. I feel like, Jesus, I feel like I've heard that before. And so then it makes me wonder, you see reels and stuff. I don't know if you've said that in another reel or if somebody else that we've talked to said that, but like, I just had like some serious deja vu during that entire, them wanting to make the officers look, shitty. And did somebody, I can't, McKenna, somebody, I don't know, man, but that's interesting.
I know what you're talking about because I think I've seen the same exact things, but
well, it's a typical approach. Is that the little guy is the hero and the one at the top is screwing stuff up. It's not that it doesn't happen; it does, but it's not absolute.
Right.
It's not always the executives are always bumbling idiots. Some of them are sometimes. And sometimes the lower level middle management guys and girls are the heroic ones. Yeah, it's true sometimes. But in the military, it's the same thing, as far as I can see. And I know pretty well the real story of what happened, during that time. And I talked to a lot of people who were there. And the portrayal of some of those officers was not accurate.
Yeah.
But some of it was accurate. So I give the, David and Ed and the producers, I give them credit. They put out a great product.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it's interesting kind of going back to, you talked about, well, I'll ask this question first. Did you have any idea that it was going to be as big and as lifelong as it ended up being before shooting?
I mean, it was an HBO series, so I knew it was going to be a good job. Was it going to bomb? Anything could. There's always a possibility that something bombs. But no, I had a sense that it was going to be a pretty good show. Now keep in mind, there wasn't huge stars in it. It it wasn't a big money thing. It was a pretty economical approach. It was, I would say, the stars were the producers. Really, these guys had, done The Wire and some other high level stuff. Um, so it wasn't really like the marquee quality of it. I think it was Evan Wright's work that really got that thing initially recognized. I mean, that's what got me interested. I read the book. I'm like, wow, this dude's got something here. Um, and my father-in-law, when I got the job, he called me babe. Babe, it's going to change your life, babe. It's going to change your life, babe. I'm telling you, babe. Babe, this is big. This is big time, babe. He was like one of my biggest fans.
That's awesome.
And he told me that. Yeah, he had a sense about it.
There's so few things done so well on the Marine Corps. And I think from hanging around us and getting to know Marines like you have, we joke like it's the biggest thing in the world that's a cult, but not a cult, but it is a cult. Like, right? I mean, Iwo Jima, just Bella Wood, everything that we look back to. And, we really, really do hold in high regard individuals like yourself. And I know you said like you just portrayed someone, but you portrayed them and not just him, Steve, not just him, but a Marine officer, and represent you guys all represented the Marine Corps so incredibly well, authentically, accurately. And in my opinion, that's why this is going to live forever. And you guys are just going to be remembered forever. That's just how it is. And do you feel some of that same sense?
Yeah, I like that. I don't have a problem with that. And I think what you guys should remember is it wouldn't be that memorable if I hadn't had the access to and influence of real Marines in the process. And I think that's what made that show what it is the level of authenticity that went into it. And that all came from the Marines. I mean, yes, it came from talented writers and producers, and they cast it really well. But there was a texture of Marine life. I mean, USMC life, not Marine life. Running through that thing, running through that thing that you couldn't argue with, and to this day, you guys are saying it was well done. I agree with you, So yeah, no, look, this is the byproduct of being an actor. If your shit's any good, it stays up there for a while. Good for you, but it's not mine. I just got an opportunity to be in it, be a part of it, and I'm happy to have been able to do that. To do that.
So, like moving forward in any future roles, were there just things that I guess the question is, did being in Generation Kill, did part of that attention to detail rub off on you? Things that you carried forward, like you said, you would ask, "Am I holding my weapon right?" Or, all these little things. Because we've heard from some other people things that carried with them. Is there anything that you carried with you that you learned on that set that's just stayed with you?
Yeah. So all the questions that I asked during Gen Kill were sort of on the fly, and shit, Rudy, is this, hey, Eric, is this, hey, Ben, is this, and they straighten me up as need be. Now, when I go to play a military guy, I'll ask all those questions before I ever go to set. Like, fuck that. Get that squared away first. Like, don't walk out there with your thing on the wrong side. Like, get it done first, And that's what a good Marine does anyway, is he or she gets their shit together, and that's a good lesson anywhere in life. And again, that did trickled down to my parenting. I tell my kids, get your shit together. Don't leave this house until you know you're buttoned up. You're ready to go. If you've got questions, get those questions answered now. Go research it now, not when you're driving to the appointment.
Right. Proper prior planning prevents
Oh my
piss
God.
poor performance.
There you go. Yeah.
Right.
It's so true to life, man. It's so true to that Marine life. Because I don't know about you, Mike, but every time before we step off on patrol, you're about to be walking around bumfuck Iraq, Afghanistan for about 4 or 5 hours. You want to make sure everything feels good on you because you're gonna be miserable here for the next few hours. You might as well be as comfortable as you can be. Set your gear up right. Make sure everything's good to go. The 7 P's.
I do that shit leaving my house now, man.
Yeah.
Like if I'm going on a road trip somewhere, if I got to wear fucking dress pants or some shit 7 hours from now, you better believe I'm wearing flip-flops and shorts driving up there.
You stop 10 minutes before at the rest stop and put the stuff on.
Yeah, exactly.
Last second. Yeah.
Be as comfortable as you can be for as long as you can be.
Otherwise, it's going to be all wrinkled when you get there anyway.
That too.
Yeah.
You gotta know. You gotta plan accordingly for that stuff.
You can't be showing up like a bag of ass.
So you've done some things also for the veteran community. You want to talk about some of just how you've gotten involved with the veteran community and things like that since Gen Kill?
Yeah, I like I say, I have a good handful of friends in the service, veterans. They asked me to do stuff if I can be of help. I love doing that stuff. I just went down and marched with these guys, including Steve Lord, down in Manasquan in I guess it was for Labor Day, and there's a lot of fun. It's it makes people happy to see somebody who was on camera portraying a military person to show up at these events. It just esprit de corps, if nothing else, and you meet incredible people. The one thing acting has afforded me is not an incredibly wealthy lifestyle, but it's afforded me the opportunity to meet people I never would have met if I hadn't been in this, you guys included. And that's important to me. And I don't just mean meeting like world-class athletes and celebrities. I mean guys and girls down in Manasquan, New Jersey, who are out marching in this detachment parade on Labor Day. You learn things about these people and about life and about America that you never would have known if you don't do that stuff. So yeah, I love doing that stuff whenever I can. I hope it helps.
Yeah, and I think and not all actors, I'm sure are like that, are like yourself, that stays involved even after it's over. And so I think that's another reason people appreciate and respect the hell out of you. Also, it's not something, some people use certain things and then kind of forget their roots, forget where they came from. And so it's always great having individuals like yourself that continue to carry it and do something with it. That means a lot.
Thank you. Once you let your feet leave the ground, it's hard to get them back down there. And you can get high on yourself and I'm doing great now. And humility is some of the best thing for an actor, I think. And I think it works well for athletes too, who are like, hot shit for a period of time, and then they're out of sports, and maybe they're not so I don't mean that it's good for them to feel bad about themselves, but there's a point where humility, I think, is really useful to a lot of people, and it has been for me. It's grounded me, and it's made me realize, look, your friends and your family are really what it's all about. Keep your feet planted on the ground and use these experiences to your benefit. Grow with them and from them. But don't get don't get all high on yourself. You're no different than anybody else, really. We're all just making our way through this life, one step at a time. So
I think it's important for everybody. You, let's just be real. People love authentic, genuine people. A lot of people, they don't want to be if you're so high on yourself, I don't ever need to give you a compliment.
And you're not going to take it. You're not going to hear those people. Once your feet leave the ground, your ears stop working too, and your brain stops working. It's really weird. Like, I've seen it happen with some people. You can't even talk to them anymore.
Lack of oxygen.
Yeah. You just can't. Here's when it all changed for me. Where it all came into focus for me is in 2014. They sent out, like, they started doing self-tapes a little bit before this, but self-tape is when they're not going to see you in a room. You got to put yourself on camera on, like, one of these and send the MP4 off to casting. So usually it's a whole rigmarole. You do it, they want a second one, then you might go in the room, then they deliberate, like it was for Jen Kill. But this film, Clint Eastwood, can you self-tape for Clint Eastwood? Yeah, I'll self-tape for Clint Eastwood. I do it myself down in the basement. I send it in. I forget about it. Like 3-4 months later, hey, you got the Clint Eastwood role. I'm like, wait, that's it? Like that? Yeah. I'm like, I don't have to do it 3 more times? No, you got it. I'm like, wow. Then I don't hear anything for 2 more months. And they're like, go out to L.A. in, I don't know, May or something. I go out there, and I go to set, and they're like, did you meet Clint yet? And I'm like, what? They're like, did you meet Clint yet? I'm like, oh, fuck. Am I really about to meet Clint Eastwood? And he walks me across the airfield, and there's Clint talking to this big burly guy. And he just turns to me and goes, hey, Chance, it's really nice to see you. I'm really glad you're here. And I went, and I don't get starstruck. I've met big stars. I've met top level people. My fucking knees buckled. I went, oh, nice to meet you, Clint. It's really nice to be here. And I was just like, don't faint, don't drool, just straighten up and just act like a professional. And it was like, and then I settled in. I was okay. But, like, when we went to lunch, all right, you guys been on sets?
No.
You guys ever been on a set? All right.
No.
All right, next set, I got to invite you guys. Where do you live? Where do you live?
We're Florida guys.
Florida dudes,
All right,
yeah.
so I'll keep that in mind. So when you go to set, you take the top half of the top third of the call sheet. It's like the biggest names, right? Director, big star, Bradley Cooper, this guy, this girl. And they generally disappear during lunch. Lunch being the first meal that you have of the day. Everyone else goes out, and the grips and the mid-level actors, they all eat together. But the big names always disappear. I'm online getting my food, as I always do. I don't really look around much. And I go like this, and I'm like, holy shit, that's Clint. And he's like reaching for the blueberries. And he just smiles at me. And he just gives me like I'm like, fuck, he's getting his own food. I'm like, oh, I wonder where he's taking it to. He takes the food over and sits down with the grips and eats lunch.
Yeah.
It's unheard of. It's unheard of. Like, like it might be, like maybe you guys have like an officers club or something and the officers go there. Not Clint. Been sitting down with the grips and eating lunch. I couldn't believe it. It was unprecedented. And so by, in seeing him do that, Bradley Cooper did the same thing. He was right next to him, and it was just such a great illustration to me. Like, that's the way it should be. And that's the way it used to be, and I'm like, man, Clint should live forever. Because that's an incredible lesson,
Yeah, he's one of those guys. He's one of those guys that if we can figure out nanotechnology sooner than later, let's like put it in him, right?
Yes, yes, clone that guy. Trust me,
The first
clone that guy.
one.
You know, a lot like so many. Yeah, we just we do. We have some national treasures. These older guys, man, and just the values that they bring, you know, with them and doing things and working with people and how to treat other human beings is like fucking when did we lose that? When did we lose how to treat other human beings?
Well, we lose it when we forget it. Here's the thing: you guys are born in the 70s, 80s.
80s.
Okay,
Early 80s.
I was born in the 60s, but we're essentially the same batch of. We're essentially the same generation in this regard. When we go, nobody else will remember what life was like analog. I mean, I grew up analog. I got married. I was still analog. It wasn't until we had our first baby that we got an iPhone, a cell phone. There was no internet when I went to college. These things didn't exist when I got out of college. So my actual era, we grew up truly analog and then went digital. You guys, I'm sure when you were kids, you didn't have all the digital stuff. And you can remember when the internet came in to play
Oh
and when
yeah.
personal computers and all that. But you guys still remember what it was like without it and what it's like with it. In 20 years, 30, 40 years, all of us are going to be gone. And it's only going to be digital minded humans. And that's
That's
going to be a
crazy.
different world. That's going to be a different world.
So it's a wild thought.
But I think, like you do, the Tales from the Core, and I was looking at the fella from who that did that incredible mission on one of your most recent episodes. These guys from World War II in Korea. These
Oh,
these these are
Royce Williams.
yeah. These are incredible lessons, and these are incredible men. The history's critical to us moving forward in a positive way, and I'm very into history, and that's what my YouTube channel focuses on is history, and
Right.
and I'm really obsessed with different levels of history, but history is an incredible tool, and it's a real gift to adhere to and listen to, and learn from, and be guided by.
It's so important. And speaking of history, we just had John Parshall on, who, you know, a huge historian, World War II, just an incredible guy. And, you know, even like Tim Gray, who documents all these different guys and documents history. And so it's, you know, it's funny. They always talk about, I guess, when you hit 40 years old, you either get really into World War II history or smoked meats. And, you know, I got the bandwidth that I do both.
Or both. Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, and it's one of those. I don't know when you might have gotten into it, but you know, for me, it's wish that it's something that I would have gotten into sooner at a younger age. It was something my dad had an affinity and a passion for, you know, when he was alive, and like truly learning, like truly, like you get to the point in the age where like if we don't learn from it, it repeats itself. That's so cliche when you're younger. But then it's like you hit 40, you wake up, your back hurts, and you're like, shit, if we don't learn from history, it's going to repeat itself. It just, you know, one day. Uh, I don't, when did you start to really get into like history?
It's funny because I was not a good student in school. And probably my consistently worst subject was history. I couldn't do it. I couldn't follow it. I didn't know what the hell was going on. And the reading killed me. And I'm not a great reader unless I'm really focused. I was never diagnosed, but I think I have a version of dyslexia. So like I have to have a very focused environment to read, but I have to be truly interested in what I'm reading or I can't read it. And it wasn't until I was at NYU undergrad that I first started learning about the early history of Manhattan Island. And I just caught a glimpse of it, and I was like, wait, 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 because I was walking down. You guys been to New York?
Yes.
All
I
right,
haven't.
so you know the West Village. You know where
Yes.
Washington Square Park is. All right, so
Mhm.
I was just south of the park. There's LaGuardia Place, and I'm walking along, and there's this. It's like this exhibit that this artist did back in the '60s, and it's like it's a it's just a section, a rectangle out of a big wide block. But the purpose is it's supposed to illustrate the vegetation that was here prior to European colonization. And I was like just staring at it one day. It's like this impressionable 23-year-old. And it just stunned me. I was like, wait. I mean, I guess you figure there was a point, where everything was just woods. But it
Yeah.
just blew me away. I'm like, wait, this is what this island used to look like. And then to me, because I have a fairly creative mind, I start thinking about, well, what was happening here when it looked like this and what wasn't happening here. And it just got my brain going. And as time went on, it took decades that I really started looking into it and researching it, and then devoting myself to a podcast about it. And I do this thing called Island, and it's a 300-year history of Manhattan Island, starting with Henry Hudson in 1609 and completing at the completion of Teddy Roosevelt's second administration in 1909. And that swath of history, I believe, if people, just like people should study World War II and Rome, ancient Rome more, if we just focus kids on that, I think they would be so much better off than a lot of the bullshit that we try to teach them in conventional school. But this story about Manhattan Island, nobody knows about it. I mean, not to say people don't know about Teddy Roosevelt and they don't know about the Erie Canal and all that, but they don't know it in the right context. And I think if they really studied it, they'd learn even more about what America's really about and what really built America and where it really emanates from. And that got me interested in a whole bunch of other historical stuff. But that's my real key focus.
Yeah, it's I always think back to those times like the 1600s and stuff, and even before, anytime it gets really cold in Florida. I'm just like, there was nobody here to predict it. These people live down here, it's hot. And then they're like, what the fuck is this? Like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's cold. What's this shit?
Thought it was supposed to be hot and humid.
But
Tropical.
it is great to think back on, like you're saying, before everything is as we know it. Where did we come from? Where did it come from? What inspired this? Why is this way? And how did it come to be? And I think that stuff's fascinating too.
Yeah. Well, there's a simple answer why it came to this way. Why people came here is there's a simple, clear answer. It was oppression of the Roman Catholic Holy Roman Empire in the 15 and 1600s. That's the only reason Europeans ever initially came here. Now the Spanish were here, but they were in Florida and the Caribbean and
Right.
California, but they were here for different reasons. They were Catholic and they were doing the oppressing to many people, but they were looking for gold and to conquer. That was it. They were not looking to truly colonize. The Dutch and the Walloons, who were really Belgians, we call them Belgian today, came here to escape oppression from the Holy Roman Empire. And I don't have a problem with the Holy Roman. I don't have a problem with Catholicism. My family is Catholic, but this is an old version of Catholicism that doesn't exist anymore. And they did want to take over the world. And if you were Protestant, they did not take kindly to it, and it would mean persecution or death. And that's why people came here. And that was the 1620s. That includes the Mayflower, because the Puritans were Calvinists, which is just followers of John Calvin following Martin Luther. Martin Luther was the first Protestant. John Calvin was the next Protestant. He kind of led the way. But that's the only reason people came here. And then if you learn it from through that lens, it makes so much more sense. And what you see is what happened up in New England, off of Cape Cod, basically, had nothing to do with developing this nation. Whereas what the Dutch and Walloons did in Manhattan had everything to do with it. And everybody ended up copying what they did. So much so that the English ended up stealing it from them in 1664 because they had laid out such a formidable, growing society. And no one really talks about that, not in school anyway. They definitely don't teach it that way,
It's interesting what they choose to teach and choose
I
not
agree.
to teach.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's convenient. And it's a lot of it is just English based because it's clean and it makes sense. Well, the English set it up and then we took it from the English. It's clean, but it's not how it happened. It's not exactly how it happened. It's so much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
And a little bit
It's like-
darker.
Yeah, it gets
Darker.
pretty dark too. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like there were presidents before Washington, but there's all these little different things. Yeah, the shit's fascinating to me as well. So
Good.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop a link. Isn't this awesome that you guys love Tales from the Core? We go from Generation Kill and Marines, and then now we're talking about how America was formed. Like, you just never know what the hell's gonna happen over here.
And New York City started with that very first building. Like it wasn't always buildings. It's wild. It is. It's cool to think about.
We're gonna drop links so people can come over and check out more as well. The podcast and the work and the stuff that you have on your channel. So
Great. Thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So there's anything that we haven't covered, like nonprofits you work with, support, or anything like that you want to just like, man, these guys, if they'd have done their research better, they would have asked me this. You got anything like that for us?
I work with a bunch of charities throughout the years, and they come and go, some of them, but anything that benefits kids and or the military, I'm in favor of, and I contribute to, and I am available and happy to do appearances for them and things like that. I don't have anything offhand that I'm raising money for right now, but I am always working with a lot of those charities and happy to do it. And if there's others out there that I can help with in any way, just let me know. I'd be happy to do it.
Oh, that's incredible. We appreciate it.
Very much.
Neil, what do you got?
Yeah.
You got anything there, Slider?
Yeah, I guess going back to really not letting, as you said, let your feet leave the ground. You keep that sense of humility. I think Bruce said it best, man. When he was talking to all the guys on the Pacific, he brought them together and said, "Look, this isn't just another role. It's not just a job. It's a calling." And you can tell the guys who actually it meant everything to them, and they carried that with them to today, and see the same thing with you, Chance, man. It's very obvious that it meant a lot to you, and you're doing amazing things. It's very cool.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Sure.
We appreciate it. We, appreciate what you did, your representation, all of you guys with Generation Kill, that project, and just the way that you honored those men, such as Steve and the others, and then, of course, the legacy and the portrayal of our Marine Corps. That is so important to us, and that's why we love whenever folks like yourself join and come on and get to have this conversation with us. So we thank you again for that. We greatly appreciate it.
It's peace through strength, gents. It's you guys are the backbone of this nation, and it's not going to change. So it's an honor to be, associated with you guys on any level, and I appreciate you bringing me on the podcast. It's great talking to you guys.
And everybody
Thank you so
who
much, Chance.
tunes in, follows us, supports us, man. We love you guys. We do this for y'all. We truly enjoy, we love what we get to do. And until next time, Semper Fi.
Simplify, gents.
We got to see a salute. There you go. Neil didn't do it either. Fuck me, I guess. I'll just go fuck myself.
My bad. Sorry. I'm sorry. I'll go haze myself. I'll push till you're tired.